Hello and welcome to the Employee Benefits Insights series, designed to keep you up to date with the latest trends and solutions that will enable you to implement effective and efficient reward strategies after the fallout from the global pandemic. The speaker of this session will be on hand in the live chat room on the right of your screen to answer any questions you may have. The Q&A will then continue for up to 10 minutes after the session has finished. Don't forget to follow us and get involved on social media by using the hashtag EBInsights21. This strategy session, entitled Building Resilient Teams, a Whole Person, Whole Organisation Approach, is sponsored by Unmind. Please welcome Interim Editor of Employee Benefits, Kavita Sivasubramaniam.
Hello and welcome. I'm delighted to introduce Sarah McPake, Head of Talent, Insights and Inclusion at TSB. Today we're going to discuss how to adapt to employees' needs in the pandemic, how to develop a proactive approach to meeting these individual needs, and taking a whole person approach to employee resilience. Sarah, can you just start by telling us a bit about your role at TSB?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Hi there. So my role, I head up Talent Insights and Inclusion, which includes all of our culture work. So includes all of our work to create a healthy, productive culture at TSB. I think on resilience and mental health, I'm an enthusiastic amateur rather than a mental health professional. But I've been working on mental health strategies both as a communications consultant and then in roles both in communications and HR in different industries on the topic of mental health and embedding healthy cultures for about 6 years now. It's a topic that's moving really quickly, but we're all learning really quickly. And I hope that today I can share a little bit about what we've been working on at TSB and where resilience and approaches to resilience are going in the future.
Thanks. So what is TSB's approach to wellbeing and mental health then?
So I'll start off with our approach to wellbeing. At TSB, we use the wellbeing cycle, which is an approach that looks at both the proactive work in terms of taking care, understanding our well-being, acting early, as well as some more traditional approaches to making sure we've got the right support and services that people can access, recover well, return to work if they've been absent, and then kind of continue that cycle. If we use the EAP as a great tool there, obviously society is thinking more holistically about well-being. So where traditional resources like the EAP really used to offer brilliant support in the access support space, you could call them up and get normally counselling support either in the moment or longer term counselling support, and then they might support you with occupational health needs as you return. A lot of those suppliers are now kind of beginning to offer a lot more in the education space, and really understanding that the more that we can get everyone taking care of themselves and acting early, the more successful our wellbeing strategies will be. So that model we use whether we're talking about physical well-being, psychological well-being, financial well-being or social well-being. And we've got various different kind of approaches and activities, initiatives kind of around that life cycle in all of those spaces. I'll just spend a moment talking about the 3 audience groups that are in the middle of that cycle as well, because all 3 of those are really important to our success, the success of our wellbeing cycle. Importantly, it's about empowering colleagues. Wellbeing can't be done to people. I think we all know that it's very personal, and it's about making sure that everyone knows what's available to them, that they feel able and supported to access it, but that they can make that choice themselves. So empowering colleagues is very much part of our wellbeing strategy, as is supporting line managers. Line managers obviously have an incredibly important role to play in supporting individuals and supporting their teams. So we have a lot of work, we do a lot of work in terms of supporting line managers. That takes lots of different kind of shapes and sizes. Some of that is information, things like, again, I'll refer to the EAP, traditional kind of models of EAPs. I mean, line manager support lines where line managers can phone up and talk through how they, anything that's going on in their teams and how best to support them. Our line manager curriculum at TSB also starts with a module on wellbeing. So if you want to lead people at TSB, you must complete our line manager curriculum, and that's the very first content that you look in that is mental health awareness, so that all of our line managers have at least a basic understanding and feel comfortable talking about mental health. And then finally, role modelling. So leaders again play a really key role in role modelling healthy, productive work, in having great conversations, showing their own vulnerabilities, and speaking openly about why this is important. So that's a bit about our overall approach to wellbeing. And then specifically, our mental health approach has 3 pillars. So opening up conversations and building confidence and challenging stigma, and building healthy habits. To give an idea of some of the activity in those pillars, these 3 pillars were first developed about 4 years ago now. Feels 2017 doesn't feel that long ago, but we developed it in response to employee feedback that they felt we could do more in the mental health space. We were talking a lot about wellbeing, but they wanted us to specifically look into mental health. So those 3 pillars have been around in the organisation and for a number of years, but the content, strategies, initiatives have evolved over that time. So opening up the conversation is all about kind of communication, the power of storytelling, leading from the centre in terms of our comms approach, about talking about mental health, about making it feel a comfortable topic and comfortable language that people want to use. It's also about creating spaces. So we've got digital spaces. We use Yammer, where people can open up, talk about mental health, not just talk to people immediately within their teams or who they come across every day when we were working on site, or for those teams who still are working on site, but they can talk to people across the business who've maybe got shared experiences. So it's also about opening up those spaces. And again, when we were on site in our bigger offices, and those are people who normally work in our head office sites are obviously all currently working from home, but we've done some work to create physical spaces, so quiet spaces, places people could go, either for personal reflection or for those kind of quieter one-to-one conversations that they wanted to have a more confidential and quiet space for. Open up conversations is also about networks, so both that creating space and clear messaging comes through our really strong employee network, particularly our inclusion network. We've done a huge amount of work over the past year in really supporting an open, active conversation about mental health. Building confidence is all about skills and language. So we have mentioned the training that we've got for all line managers. We also work with our leaders to make sure that they're really role modelling, whether that's through their communication, their behaviour, how they work, really kind of healthy ways of working. And we make sure we've got both confidential as well as open channels, so people feel able to speak up about their mental health confidentially to external providers within the organisation, as well as having open and public conversations. So that's building confidence. And then finally, healthy habits. This pillar was quite campaign led. We did some activities like asking everyone in the organisation to pledge what one small thing they were going to do to take better care of their mental health. We've always celebrate Time to Talk Day, where we take a chance to kind of slow down and have those conversations. But I'd say 2020, we were just beginning to really lean into and unpick, what does it mean to have truly healthy habits as an organisation? What does healthy work look like, not just personal health applied to the workplace? So there's plenty of work which I'll come on to talk to later about what does it really mean to have healthy habits in the workplace. That's a whistle stop of all things wellbeing and mental health at TSB.
How did you adapt that approach in 2020?
Yeah, it's really quite sobering to think back to the beginning of 2020, or March 2020, as we were heading into the pandemic, and just how little we knew about what was ahead, and how quickly we've all learned and adapted over that time. I think the key thing in adapting was listening to our colleagues. So listening at TSB is really core to kind of all of our employee experience. We want to make sure people are involved in shaping our strategies and helping us adapt in ways that work, rather than guessing. I don't think I'm alone in admitting there was a lot of guesswork for all of us as we kind of navigated March and early April and beyond, working out how we create work that feels doable, and we all adapt quickly, whether that was working from home. We've got lots of colleagues who are continue to work in branch, who are customer facing, and also in our operation sites, who are continuing to come onto site. So there was a huge amount to learn. So we did a lot of listening work, both in person through our line managers and also through various different survey approaches. And what people told us very quickly was it's personal. Wellbeing is personal. That we've got kind of those 3 different populations: those who are working from home and dealing with adapting to what that meant. We've got those who are continuing to work in branch, who are dealing with the specific challenges of being face to face or mask to mask with customers every day. And those in our operation sites who are on the phone to customers and dealing with some really difficult conversations, as all of us have our financial needs have changed over that time. So when we listened to colleagues, what they told us really clearly is that their well-being is personal, and what they wanted was TSB to support them in a way that worked for them, that they could pick and choose and access what they needed, and that they felt comfortable and supported, that they absolutely had that choice. So there's a whole range of things that we did to try and meet that need. The first thing was make sure that we had the right suite of tools. So we had existing tools. I've mentioned it already several times, but our employee assistance program, which is invaluable. We had a whole load of information tools via our insurance provider and our occupational health provider, lots of great webinars and content that people could access. And we also have great knowledge in the business. So line manager education, I've already talked about, where people felt able to talk to their line managers. But we also added one additional tool, a digital tool which gave people access on their phones via an app to personal mental health care. We went with the Unmind app, and we really liked their philosophy that you should look after your mental health like your dental health. And so it's got something for everyone. So it's got in the moment quick tools, but it's got a whole library of different content, which means that whether you're really wanting to get stuck into support for parenting, for example, or you want to practice meditation, there's something for everyone. So we felt that met the need of kind of something for everyone. So we made sure we had a kind of really great, flexible, personalised suite of tools available to people. Adaptability was then also key in our policies. So we reviewed all of our policies and continue to do so to make sure that as we get feedback and we needed to put new policies in place, for example, to look after health and safety on site, that they're always adaptable. Nothing's really set in stone, as I'm sure many of us are experiencing at the moment, and adaptability is key. Flexibility is also key, so it's not just policy and what you can and can't do within those policies, but it's about being open-minded and flexible. People are juggling childcare responsibilities, other caring responsibilities, other requirements that mean that they need to, whether that might be shielding or other reasons that they can't come into work. We're just trying to be as flexible as possible to allow people to continue being productive. And some great examples of that are where people have potentially people who are normally working on site, normally have got great customer facing skills but can't come into work for a period of time, have been able to adapt that and use those skills. So maybe they're normally front facing in branch and now they're serving customers over the telephone. So just making sure that we've been really as flexible as possible whilst also meeting customer need. Mentioned customers there. The other thing that's been really important in our in adapting our mental health strategy is being mindful of the mental health of our customers. So supporting our customers is obviously critical and core to TSB's strategy. Our purpose is all about achieving money confidence, and we know that many people, whether it's their financial well-being or any other type of well-being, have been affected at the moment. So our brilliant customer team have just rolled out some training that's specifically about how to support customers who are experiencing poor mental health, which in turn gives our employees more confidence in having those conversations and in turn makes them clear where they can turn if they're feeling under pressure from having some of those more challenging conversations. So that's been another key piece for us, is making sure that our mental health strategy runs through everything that we do, and so people don't feel that it stops at any point and they're unsure how to talk to a particular population. If you feel comfortable having a mental health conversation with your team, you should also feel comfortable talking about it with our customers and vice versa. And then finally, social wellbeing is talked about a lot at the moment. That social connection is something lots of people are missing. So we've been looking, we're doing a lot more in the social connection space as we've come through 2020, whether that encouraging people to have more informal chats as well as formal meetings if they're working digitally. And we've also been running a campaign alongside our new brand, Life Made More, where people have been sharing what they've been doing on our digital channels and really celebrating things where they're not able to connect in person. So social wellbeing has been another key part of how we've adapted this year.
And how easy has it been to make the shift from a reactive to a proactive approach?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I would say it's a journey that we're still on. I showed you the wellbeing cycle up front. I think some of that was already in place as we came into 2020. So some of that more proactive work around kind of awareness, taking care of yourself, understanding that wellbeing isn't just about crisis management or stepping in at the last minute. It's all the way around that life cycle. Are we getting it right all of the time? I would say no. There's always more we can do. But I think the pandemic has really helped accelerate everybody's awareness of shifting to a more proactive approach. Everyone within the bank, outside of the bank, you can't move the social media content about how important it is to take care of yourself and those around you. And tools like the Unmind app, I mentioned their philosophy, look after your mental health like your dental health, is so helpful in kind of shifting that and getting people to think a little bit differently. Having said that, I think it's also really important that we remember that reactive is also really important. Proactive is kind of the holistic model, but being able to step in and have that reactive care as needed is equally important. And the other thing that I've had some really interesting conversations with colleagues inside the bank about is making sure that a more holistic, proactive mental health strategy that's all about acknowledging we've all got mental health doesn't alienate or exclude those with mental health conditions or mental health diagnosis, and that we still are recognising the mental health spectrum and the mental wellbeing spectrum. I really like the model that shows the 4 quadrants where you've got mental wellbeing on your x-axis, mental health on your y-axis, and you've got 4 really clear populations there, and making sure that you've got appropriate services and resources available to those with a mental health condition, as well as taking that really broad holistic approach to making sure everybody feels able and understands what they want to do to support their mental wellbeing, rather than feeling like the bank is forcing an approach on them and that feels done to them. So to answer your question, how easy has it been? I think we had some stuff in place that was moving us in that direction, like our line manager curriculum, like some of that awareness work, but the pandemic has really helped accelerate that. There's certainly more leaders who are coming to me and my team now and saying, actually, what can I do about wellbeing, and looking for more ways that they can get involved, where previously it felt more like a push out from us. There's certainly more people coming to us. The pandemic has helped accelerate that, but that mindset shift will take longer time to really embed that kind of proactive mental health care is how we all operate day to day. But we're on our way.
So where does resilience fit into your mental health approach?
Yeah, it's another really good question. I've talked a lot there about wellbeing and mental health without mentioning the word resilience, and I guess I'd start by answering that question by calling out some of the things that resilience isn't. Resilience is often used as a synonym for stamina. It's not resilient. Being resilient isn't about going as far as you can for as long as you can. It's not a just-in-time kind of stress management tool, or a reaction to stress levels feeling high is not the time to start talking about resilience. And equally, it's not a sticking plaster for burnout. But it can feel quite difficult to land on what a definition for resilience is. If you look it up in the dictionary, it says bounce back ability. That always makes me think of those fairground kind of games where you keep throwing something and something flaps down and it pops back up again, and then it pops back up again. And I think I've seen more recently some much more helpful definitions about resilience that are about growth. So if I go back to that analogy, it's not just popping back up again. That thing might stay down and think, oh, actually, could I come back in a different way, or could I come back in a completely different game? How do we learn from those experiences, take time to reflect, and going back to the stamina point, not just keeping going and keeping going and keeping going, but taking the moment to reflect and grow. There's an example that's cited quite often that I really like about Thomas Edison inventing the light bulb. He failed thousands of times, but he doesn't say, I failed 1,000 times. He says, I didn't get it right 1,000 times. And resilience is that mindset. It's about something not quite going right and learning and shifting. So where does it fit in our strategy? The most helpful way I can describe that is actually by talking about TSB's resilience strategy, not for individual well-being, but in our customer experience. So there's a screenshot on the slide of a report that TSB published a couple of weeks ago. I saw it pop up on our internal intranet, and I thought, hang on a minute, what's that about? I've not come across it, and I work on our mental health strategy, and it's actually all about how our small businesses, all of those small businesses that are struggling at the moment and are accessing additional financial services through their bank, how can they be more resilient? And what really struck me from that report is it's incredibly wide-ranging. It talks about things like making sure you've got skills for the future. It talks about having a forward plan. It talks about taking breaks if you need them. It talks about pivoting if what you're doing isn't working and you do something completely different. And it talks about peer groups and making sure you've got a network around you. And I thought that was such a helpful way to reflect on what does resilience look like for TSB from a wellbeing perspective, because so much of what we're doing is not about rolling out a resilience program or resilience training. It's about working with our teams to make sure that they are resourced properly. It's about thinking about the skills for the future and having a plan so that we're adaptable in future. I gave the example earlier of our teams who are normally serving customers in branch. They're not able to do that for whatever reason, and so they're able to then pick that up in the phone. That's a brilliant example of resilience where people have been able to adapt. They felt able, they felt confident, they had the skills. It's being able to take a break and not see that as a failure. So have some downtime, take a rest, whether that's during the day. So those of us who are working remotely may have back-to-back Teams, Zooms, whatever channel you use, calls all day, and allowing yourselves to take 10 minutes at the end of each call. Don't have 60-minute calls, have 50-minute calls. That helps build resilience. You can keep going longer. Or do more calls without kind of getting throughout the day, or it might be taking breaks, making sure that holiday is taken. We don't save all of our holiday up because we can't travel at the moment, but making sure that holiday is staggered throughout the year to give people those breaks. So where resilience fits in our wellbeing strategy, as I said, isn't in having specific programs or training, but it's in having an approach that's proactive, an approach that's relevant to both individuals and to the organisation, and that is really wide ranging. So it covers having a plan, it covers having the skills to be adaptable, it covers how leaders support me. So again, going back to our line manager curriculum, leaders are able to lead with empathy, flexibility. So yeah, in summary, I think resilience for us at TSB isn't about a specific thing. We're very thoughtful about the definition of it, and we're really thoughtful about what resilience means in the context of areas where it's much easier to understand it, like operational business resilience plans or small business resilience, and take what we learn from that and apply it to us as individuals.
And what would you recommend to anyone who wants to introduce a whole person, whole organisation approach to resilience?
So I think the first thing I would say is, going back to the answer I've just given, is think really thoughtfully about what resilience means to your organisation. What does it mean to be resilient, to have a plan, to feel adaptable for the future, rather than making it very reactive and what do we need right now? As I said, there is absolutely need for reactive strategies, but a proactive strategy is thinking, what are we learning during this challenging time that will set us up really well for the future and to be more resilient? But I also wanted to share some really practical tools, because I appreciate some of what I've talked about is quite theoretical or can feel a little bit kind of distant or complex in terms of application. So what I've got on the slide here is a couple of tools that we use at TSB to talk about some of the areas of resilience that I just mentioned. So the first one is the pressure curve, really, really simple tool that many of you may have seen before in different forms. So you work your way from left to right, and on the left-hand side, you've got very little pressure, you're underwhelmed and therefore not performing. On the right-hand side, you've got so much pressure, you've kind of gone over the hump of that curve and you're feeling overwhelmed. We use that in our onboarding curriculum, so every new joiner has the opportunity to see that knows that that's an open conversation at TSB, and what we really encourage is that you use it regularly. So if you're having a conversation every week with your manager and saying, well, actually, I'm in zone 2 at the moment, that's brilliant, and we encourage people to keep doing it, so that at those moments when they're in 1 or they're in 3 or they're feeling they're just getting into 3 or they're not really sure, that's already an open door and an open conversation. So just a really practical tool that helps give language, narrative and habits in the organisation about talking about where you are on that kind of pressure and performance spectrum. I'll jump over to the far right hand model on the slide and talk about our performance model. So this again is about taking wellbeing and really making it relevant to the business. One of the other things we hear when we listen to colleagues is that not everyone wants to talk about wellbeing, not everyone's comfortable with that language. But if you start talking to some people in the context of their performance and how they're doing, and remove that word well-being or mental health completely, they feel much more comfortable having the conversation. And our performance model is built all around this concept of being performance ready. You'll see 6 segments to the pie there, and we've introduced this just in the past 12 months. But it's all about having a conversation with your leader about, am I performance ready? So have I got everything I need, from the skills and the kind of hard things, that hard in the kind of concrete sense rather than difficult sense, that I need to do my job, skills, the resources, the space to do my job. But have I also got the support I need? Have I got the emotional support? Have I got the network around me? It's just a more holistic way of talking about, am I performance ready? Which I think speaks really well to that broader context of resilience that I was talking about. And then finally, I've just included the Unmind app that I mentioned. It's got a really useful resilience series in it. So that's where, if we do have people that are saying, well, actually, I do really want to know specifically more about resilience, what it means and what it means for me, we can direct them to that. And it's a series, a learning series that you can take over the course of a week, with bite-sized content every day, that positions resilience and allows people to reflect on what it means for them personally. So just a range of different practical tools that hopefully, if you're looking for things that you can lift and apply quickly, rather than as in addition to a kind of longer term definition of what does resilience mean for us, there's some things that you can kind of lift and take away straight away.
Thank you, Sarah, and thanks also to our session sponsor, Unmind. It was really interesting to hear about the work TSB has done in this area, and I'm sure many employers now have been inspired to take a proactive approach when it comes to building resilience among their workforces.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this session. Please be sure to ask any remaining questions you may have in the live chat. Our next session, Breakthrough Thinking to Reinvent HR, will take place at 10 a.m. on Wednesday the 17th of March.